All right. Okay, so you see the title, How to Teach a Fifth Grader About the American Food System. Now, I originally gave this presentation to a fifth grade class. It was a very special fifth grade class. It was my fifth grade teacher's last fifth grade class. I had spoken to her classes in the past, and she asked me to come back one more time. This happened to be her very last year of teaching the fifth grade. And I was in her first fifth grade class back in 1988. So here I was in 2023. She was in the same classroom at the same elementary school doing the same thing, which she loved. And my teacher, Mrs. Donahue, she was named Miss Agoski when she taught me, is the reason why I became a doctor. And so part of the reason I wanted to make this video was obviously to educate everyone as to how this works, but also to thank Mrs. Donahue for doing what good teachers do, which is inspire and inform their students. We're doing this project called Microplays, where they educate you on sort of day-to-day life as an adult. And one of the things she said was, hey, when you grow up, you got to make sure you do a job that's going to be useful for a very long time, because the world is always changing. Now, you can see that today in 2025, this is true now more than ever. But she said this in 1988, and it really stuck with me. And I remember I didn't make the decision like right that second, but a few days later while sitting in her class, that's when I said, you know what? I'm going to be a doctor, because that is something people will always need. And I can say for certain, in her classroom in the year 1988, that's when the idea was planted in my head to become a doctor. And so obviously I want to say thank you very much for her, teaching us in that way, pushing me in that way. And so I came back many times to talk to her class, and I would always tell them, your teacher is the reason why I am a physician today. So I told these children all about what I did in the Army and how I got to where I was. But this time I wanted to add one more thing to it. And that was, what would I do different? If I could teleport myself right back into my body at your age, sitting in this classroom, what would I do differently? And when I thought about it, the thing that jumped out at me was I would learn how food actually works much sooner, and I would apply it so that I could have done more things, so that I could have just been a better all-around me. And of course, the second one was I would have watched less television, but I'm not going to go into that today. So, food. How does it work? And of course, I had to think to myself, how am I going to tell a bunch of fifth graders in a short amount of time, in a way that holds their attention and in a manner that they will retain, not making me look like a conspiracy theory nutbag? How am I going to communicate such an important idea that can be complicated, but really isn't that complicated? How will I communicate this very quickly to these children? And what I decided after looking through the information available to me was that I would use math, just fractions, division, multiplication, to show them what is happening with our food. And so if you just allow me to demonstrate, I will show you as well. Hopefully you can share this with as many children as possible, so that people will understand what's really being done to us through our food. So these are the literal slides that I used. You're going to see them up on your screen. I wish that I understood how to decide what to eat. So I have spent decades on learning what my parents taught me, and I don't think my parents were terrible. I think that my parents simply relied on the information available to them, and the result was that we were simply educated by the commercial entities that produce food. So I decided, let's take a look at what natural food looks like. I used the website nutritionix.com to find these facts and to get nutritional labels on everything, not just the things that don't have nutritional labels. But here is what the website said about an apple. So remember that grams, or mass, that's how much your stomach feels. The more mass you eat, the more your stomach puffs out and you get signals to your brain saying, I'm not hungry anymore. When people get a surgery to reduce the size of their stomach, it takes less mass to fill their stomach, therefore making them stop being hungry earlier. So I thought, okay, let's just look at the relationship between mass and calories. All right. So first, you have to understand that every label seems to have a different number for servings, and therefore the calories are somewhat hard to interpret because you're not always comparing the same amount of grams. So I decided what we'll do across this entire exercise is we will make 100 grams the standard unit. Okay, so I'm not going to say serving, but I'll say unit. So a unit of apple is 100 grams. 100 grams, okay? So an apple is about 182 grams, which is 95 calories. So 100 grams of an apple gives you 52 calories. So you can see that the calories is about half of the grams. I'm going to keep bringing that up. And in this 182 grams, you have 19 grams of sugar. So if you divide 182 by 19, you get roughly 10%. So that tells you an apple is only 10% sugar. For the most part, if you go through every fruit on earth, fruit is only about 10% sugar by mass. The rest of it is water, cellulose, and other things, but only 10% sugar by mass. All right, that's important. So then I said, okay, let's look at a banana. A banana, 105 or 118 grams. If you divide that by the 14 grams of sugar, then you see a banana is 11% sugar. So only 11%. All right. And then if you do that whole thing where I said a unit is 100 grams, then a banana is 100 grams and 93 calories. So that's very close to the 100 grams, but still not over. All right, now we go on to chicken breast, 120 grams and 198 calories. So if you go back to that 100 grams unit, you'll see that chicken breast has 164 calories per 100 grams, which is over, but just over. So it's about 1.5 times the grams. All right. And then, of course, you don't have any sugar in meat. There's none in there. Rice. Rice is interesting because if you look at the label, it'll tell you 100 grams gives you 141 calories. However, remember, rice soaks in water. And so I used a couple of different sources to say that the final grams after you prepare the rice is about 250 to 300 grams. Once you're talking about prepared rice where the water has soaked in, you're looking at only 56 to 47 calories per 100 grams. So that's somewhere around what an apple is. One last one, broccoli. So for broccoli, if you can see that there's 10 grams per floret, and then that gets you to 3.5 calories. So you just multiply times 10. So for every 100 grams of broccoli, you got 35 calories, no sugar. So, 100 grams of broccoli is probably the lowest amount of calories you can consume of everything I've shown. Remember, your stomach feels the same thing, whether you're taking in 100 grams of broccoli, 100 grams of apple, of rice, of chicken. Your stomach feels the same way. And our sense of fullness comes from how our stomach feels, not how many calories we take in. Okay, so there. Now I've hit you with all of the natural food. This is the food that's been on Earth for millennia, possibly eons. All right, this is the food that humans have been eating for centuries and centuries, up until the point where we decided to prepare food in factories for various reasons. Now, remember what I showed you before. Every time you have 100 grams of a natural food product, the calories is somewhere under 100 or just above 100 if you're talking about meat. All right, that's the pattern. It's a little less than 100 or a little over 100. Now let's explore first the food that they tell us is healthy. So first is Nature Valley. Honey and oats. Now this is a common, if you just look at the package for this, they're green, they have pictures of farms, they like to use the word nature, they like to use the word grain, things like that. This is the pattern they use to kind of get you and suck you in and make you believe that their food product is okay. Now for 100 grams of this granola bar, you will take in 450 calories. Now remember, natural food is just a little under 100. So you take in 100 grams of an apple, you get 50 calories. You take in 100 grams of this granola bar, you take in 450 calories. So, just a simple comparison right now, if I decide to eat an apple for a snack, my stomach will feel the same as if I decide to eat a granola bar. But if you consider this granola bar actually has 9 times more calories in it. 9 times the calories of an apple. So what do you think you should eat? All right. And then if you consider the sugar content, if you look at it, 42 grams, and we have 11 grams of sugar. So sugar is 1/4 the content. Remember, in real nature, sugar is only 10% of any, or 11%, of anything we could eat. Now here's the healthy food item, and sugar is 25% of the content by weight. All right, so you can already see just with this first example of healthy food, what's going on. Every time you make a decision to eat a man-made food product, you are overloading yourself with calories that your body is not really ready to see. Our bodies are not equipped to see those kind of calories in that amount of time. Now let's look at Cheerios. Cereal is evil. Cereal is of the devil. This is why they oftentimes have cartoon characters, bright boxes, and awesome theme songs like multigrain, which remember, this is one of the ones they're trying to promote as healthy. For 100 grams, you will see 384 calories. Now remember, like I said, if you have 100 grams of an apple, you will only get 50 calories. 100 grams of broccoli, you will only get 35 calories. But if you take in 100 grams of Cheerios multigrain, you will get 384 calories. That's something like 8 times more. All right? And if you look at the sugar content, sugar is 1/5 of the mass. And remember, in the real world, real food, sugar is max 10 to 11% by mass. So here is a healthy item where it's 20%. All right, let's move on to something else. Fruit snacks, which is my favorite because fruit in the title snacks, I always assumed that fruit snacks were healthy. They had to be because it said it was a fruit snack, right? Turns out it's kind of just like gummy bears for parents. So for every 100 grams, you take in 304 calories. You remember 100 grams for an apple will only have you take in 50 calories. So if you decide to eat fruit snacks, you're going to roughly take in 6 times more calories than you would if you just decided to eat an apple. And if you look at the sugar content, sugar is 43% by weight. 43%. Now remember, real food, real fruit is only 10% sugar by weight. So once again, when you make the decision to take in a man-made product, you're getting overloaded with sugar. Way more sugar content than the human body is equipped to deal with. Now here's something that we all know is probably not healthy, but the average person probably thinks, well, it's not that big of a deal. I've eaten a can of Pringles before. I don't know about you guys. I decided to take a picture of the can side by side with the half can. And you'll notice something absent from the whole can that's not absent, that is present on the half can, and that is the total calories inside the product. They decided on the whole can not to tell you because they don't want to print that. They don't want to print something telling you that there's 700 or 800 calories inside of this tube because they know there's some people who might take out that whole tube in a day. But here's the most disturbing thing. If you take in 100 grams of Pringles, you will take in 535 calories. Now remember, again, I'm going to keep saying this because I have to drive the point home. If you take in 100 grams of apple, you will only take in 50 calories. So the minute you decide to take in one of these man-made products, you've decided, if it's Pringles, to take in 10 times more calories than you would if you had just reached for a piece of fruit. Okay? So once again, every time we consume a man-made product, we are subjecting our body to more calories than we are equipped to deal with. Just by deciding to eat man-made products, you are deciding to take in massive amounts of calories. 5, 10 times the calories you would take in if you simply gone with a natural product. Now this is over here at the PX. So if you go into a shop ed on any military base, this is what you'll see. See that guy over there? Looks like he's focused on not being fat. And it says healthier choices, healthier lifestyle. So this is what they're marketing as being healthy. I always found this interesting. That's why I snapped these photos. So I went and grabbed this picture to look at this label, and you'll see that even these wheat thins, 100 grams gives you 450 calories. Now, the way they deal with this is by simply telling you that, oh, a serving size is 16 pieces. As if somebody's going to say, oh, let me just set aside these 16 pieces and then I'm not going to eat anymore because these 16 pieces are a serving and I'm just not supposed to. That's kind of how they get off. That's how they decide to convince you that their product is healthy because, well, we told you only to eat 16 of them. I don't know why you ate half a box. We didn't recommend you eat half a box. That was your own personal decision. Your fault, you're fat. But it's really not your fault if you are fat or you've gained weight. The problem is, we've become very comfortable eating these man-made food products, and these man-made food products are designed essentially to make us fat because they contain sometimes 8 and 10 times more calories than a natural product of the same mass. But a lot of times they lose you in the labels because they know how we look at labels. We're just looking very quickly and we're being guided by taste. They know that all they have to do is write the right things on the label and you'll probably overlook it. Now, here's something we all agree is not healthy, okay? We know it's not healthy, but we eat it anyway. So if you look at this one, 100 grams of one of these Reese's cups gives you 500 calories. 500 calories. And remember that an apple, 100 grams only gives you 50 calories. Sugar is 20 grams out of 40. So this is by weight, 50% sugar. 50% sugar. If you'd just chosen to eat an apple, which is only 10% sugar, you'd have taken in 10 times less calories. So once again, a decision to consume a man-made product is a decision to take in more calories. You don't really need to look at the labels. And this is one of my issues with the dietitians and the nutritionists of the world is they kind of tell you to perform all these evaluation techniques. And one thing that I tell people is if you're looking at a food label, you already lost because they only make food labels for garbage. There's no food labels for broccoli. That's why I had to look it up on the internet. There's no food labels for apples. I guess rice technically has a food label, but usually chicken doesn't have a food label. Seafood, no food label, right? Okay, maybe it does. But fine, you know my point, all right? It's natural, it's real, it's very different. All right? And so all of these ideas together, I'm kind of being repetitive in the way I present this because one, I was presenting it to children, and I hope that you'll do the same to children that you know. But it's to drive home the point. When you make a decision to eat a man-made food product, you are making a decision to harm yourself. Now, the way that you know that this is kind of big level conspiracy, which this is a part I did not say to the children, is that nobody's talking about this. And see, I don't think I'm the only one who knows this. In fact, I'm certain that I'm not. And yet, every celebrity, every newscaster you see who's thin, they know this. They're not eating man-made food products. If you see a person who's delivering the news or a leader of a company or something like that, they are not eating man-made food products. That's how they look that way. The reason why you know that this is sort of like a higher level, big tobacco kind of conspiracy is because if they really cared what happened to you, you would see the following on the news. It would say, just in, all American food products are damaging our children. Destroy all man-made food products immediately. Never purchase them again. They would pass laws throwing the foods out of our grocery stores or changing the labels with horrible things of like pictures of fat people on all of them, and they'd put only fat people in the commercials, or they would just say the commercials have to come off television. But instead what happens is when you watch a show like Good Morning America or the Today Show, this is what you get for health recommendations. This is all they tell you. Despite the fact they have access to the same information I have, I'm not a journalist.
Slows it right down.
So tell us how we could break this plateau. And you say one of the ways to rev your metabolism is food.
Yeah. This is the greatest thing is that you can eat to actually rev your metabolism. And there are foods that can activate our beneficial fat called brown fat that actually can fight excess body fat. through a process called thermogenesis. So here are just some of the foods: chili peppers, ginger, tomatoes, carrots, avocado, pears, blueberries, edamame, all can actually help us activate our metabolism, and beverages too. Tea, green tea, black tea, coffee, one of my personal favorites, tomato juice, and even water can actually help you.
Oh.
Okay, so that's the eating part. Let's get to the moving part. You know, I'm a fitness enthusiast, as my friends here are too. What about exercises that can help our metabolism?
All right, look, Jen, we all know that exercise burns fat. So in addition to lowering your caloric intake and eating fat-burning foods, you got to actually move. And cardio is a great way to do it. So whether you actually go for...
All right. Let's back this thing up. Okay, so this right here is a perfect example of disinformation. All right? It's perfect. The set looks great. Set looks wonderful. Colorful. There's like images of vegetables in the background. There's a wonderful, colorful display of vegetables in front of you. All this stuff about activity. But here's where the BS comes from. Okay? Look at this woman. She's cute and thin. This woman is thin. This guy is pretty thin, and this guy, for his age, looks great. They all know that this isn't the whole story. They know this. They're only telling you part of the story, and the truth is, you could triple, quadruple their recommendations for vegetable eating and for exercise. If you continue to eat man-made food products, not only will you not lose weight, not only will you not see no change, you will actually continue to gain weight. They made no mention. The weight loss game isn't about what you do. It's more about what you don't do, which is consume man-made products that are high calorie, very high calorie, more high calorie than our body is even meant to deal with. That's the problem. And that's the thing they don't touch on. The reason being, as soon as they cut to a commercial break, this is what you're going to see.
Look out, 'cause here I come.
Have you always had trouble with your weight? Same.
Discover the power of Wegovy.
With Wegovy, I lost 35 pounds. And some lost over 46 pounds.
And I'm keeping the weight off.
You have all the ingredients for this in your fridge. But ask yourself this. Of all the times you've made it at home, has it ever tasted like our McMuffin? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
You see, Wegovy and McDonald's, we can't sponsor a person who literally spends the first 10 minutes before their commercial comes on telling them that all the things they're about to show them aren't even the best way of doing things. And being honest with the American audience means telling them that Wegovy is the wrong answer and that you should never eat McDonald's. And they're just not going to tell you that right before they show you a commercial for Wegovy and a commercial for McDonald's. I think a lot of people have figured out the purpose of television is to make money for people who operate the television stations and who pay for ads on the television stations. The purpose is not to inform you of anything. It's only to make sure that the economy works the way they want it to work. All right. So people like me spent a lot of time in front of television in the 80s, which means I was bombarded with ads which were lowering my suspicion of anything. The result was I believed that anything I saw at a grocery store was perfectly safe and reasonable to consume. But that is not true. In fact, you could almost say the opposite is true. Almost nothing is fit for consumption other than what is in the produce section. That's the gist of it. But if you tried to say this on television, they would cut off your mic because there's a commercial coming on, which you would basically tell people to ignore. So see, you can't make money by telling people about this. In fact, if I was a very popular YouTuber, I would expect that this message would be suppressed in some way. Either people would attack me or they would come for me in some way. But I don't have an enormous audience. So I can say this and there's not really going to be consequences. But they don't, if the world actually carried out what I am recommending, if people did what I'm telling you to do, the result would be an immense economic collapse. And nobody's going to let that happen. These food companies bring in ridiculous amounts of money. And if we all together refuse to buy their products, and their products stop moving, these companies would implode. There would be excess, and there would be no way to get rid of it. So a message like mine essentially has to just either be suppressed, which I wouldn't be surprised if this message is suppressed in some way or another, or just never created in the first place. They have to keep everyone somewhat ignorant as to what's going on. And that was very easy to do before YouTube showed up. It was very easy to keep us all very ignorant as to what's actually going on. I've given this message to at least 150 of my patients, and I can see them start to lose weight. The crazy part about this is they didn't teach this to me in medical school either. That's the other part of why I think this is a little bit conspiracy kind of stuff going on. And I'm not saying that I didn't say this to the fifth graders. Okay, now I'm going off script. Why would they not teach this to me in medical school? Why did I have to learn this by watching my own waistline expand at the age of 35 and trying to figure out what was going on? Why did I have to kind of like come up with this idea of looking at the nutritional labels of real food versus man-made food? Why wouldn't they have done that in medical school? What? And I think the answer is because I think if doctors knew this, doctors would educate people. And if we educated people, we might reduce the need for medication. And if we all together reduce the need for medication, it would cause another economic issue for the people who make a lot of money off of our collective poor health. That's kind of like higher level conspiracy stuff, but at the very least, it creates a motivation for us to change nothing. So maybe it's not like some evil plan hatched in a conference room under a volcano, but at least tells you what people's incentives are. There is no incentive to improve Americans' health, because if we improved Americans' health, that would mean consuming billions of dollars less of products that drive our economy. It would then also mean billions of dollars less in sales of medications that make our economy move. So, yeah, maybe people aren't setting out to destroy the human body, but our sad state of health is certainly helping the bottom line of hundreds of companies. So that's the gist of it. You can leave that last little conspiracy part out when you teach your children about health, but I would please beg you, for the sake of the future generations, to please consider teaching any child that you know what I've shown you about our health, or about American food products and about the American diet, and just showing them that mathematically it does not make sense to put a man-made food product in your mouth. They're going to lie as often as they can. So even the data that I've shown you on the labels, do you think that's the whole truth? Or do you think there's more to it? It's possibly even more calories than they say. They just don't want to put that on there because they know the more calories they admit to, the less likely their item is to get purchased. So it's quite possible that it's even worse than I said. So again, I ask of you, please, let your children know, teach your children now how this works, and help them make better decisions in the future. And I'll see you next time.